What is going on, you guys? Today I have another quick video review for you. This one is from a channel called Jim Tang, and the title is Why He Left His $350,000 a year job at 27 and Why Most Never Would. Let's get into it.
I spent nearly 5 years in corporate making a dying, waking up feeling this sense of meaninglessness, opening my calendar, seeing these meetings that I just didn't give a shit about. In my mind, I was thinking, once I retire, that's when my real life is going to begin. And so while I was waiting for my real life to begin, I was escaping into things like video games, pornography, and I would just think, how many more days, how many more years do I have to wait? How many more decades? And every morning, before and after bed, I just didn't care anymore. So I remember during the course of these 5 years, I consumed a lot of content on social.
That can be it for the rest of your life if you let it, right? And actually, I want to bring this up because he mentioned making a dime. It was like a joke on making a living. I have a very close friend's dad who retired at about maybe 65, and he had just retired, started doing a little bit of traveling just in the US with his wife, and he passed away almost immediately, which is so sad, right? Because you think about it, like he did exactly what this guy was talking about. He did all of this work to eventually retire when he wasn't as able as he was when he was young, for one part, and then he passed away as soon as he retired. Like that is extremely sad, and especially for the wife and the family. My friends, like some of his kids. That's just crazy, crazy to hear. So this is why you need to think about this. The past is gone. The future is basically undecided yet, and all you have is right now. So what are you going to do with the time that you have right now?
Media, talking about people who had quit their job to find themselves, to build a startup, to pursue their passion. I would tell myself that is foolish. But deep down, I envied that conviction, that level of self-belief. But over the 5 years that I worked in corporate, every single passing year reinforced this decision that if I were to leave, my past 5 years were a mistake. And so I was on this path of going super hard for saving for financial independence. I remember I was so mindful of all of my spending. I did every single hack in the book, 401k, Roth IRA, mega backdoor, Roth high yield savings accounts, all of this stuff, which I'm grateful that I did. But this entire time, I was just in survival mode. It wouldn't have mattered which company I worked for because I think for me, deep down, I always wanted to live that life that is true to myself, doing some form of entrepreneurship, some sort of creative work like what I'm doing now, having agency of my life. And that's not to say that I didn't want to work. Originally, I thought that was the case because I simply hated work so much. But when I really thought about it, when I played video games, I could play video games for 12, 14 hours a day nonstop. I'm a grinder. But there was this false belief in me that said that I'm lazy because I simply just couldn't bring myself to do corporate work because this work to me, while it's in software engineering, while I'm coding, something that I do enjoy doing, it was under this corporate machine working on these like B2B products. I tried to work. I couldn't work at my max capacity. I did enough to get by. I was still able to get a promotion. And so I worked how much I needed to, but nothing more. And I kept progressively working less and less over the years because I simply mentally couldn't bring myself to do it. Meanwhile, guilting myself for being lazy, subconsciously telling myself that I don't respect myself enough to do what I actually want to do, that I don't have the agency, I don't have the self-belief to take a bet on.
Let's highlight that for a second. He said, I don't respect myself enough to do exactly what I want to do with my life. So basically, he's highlighting that most people allow others to tell them or even bully them. Even you don't think it is, right? You're being sort of like brainwashed by like society, teachers, government, etc. No, this is what you should do with your life. Listen to us. But how just stop to ask yourself, how many of these things do you actually want to be doing? How many of those thoughts were actually original thoughts? And yeah, I know like certain things work for a reason, or maybe you really, really wanted to be a doctor, and it wasn't because your mom or your family really was like, no, you need to be a doctor. You definitely want to do that. You want to get into software engineering. What was the last thing that you did that you really wanted to do that actually was meaningful for your life? Not talking about playing video games, because he just talked about that too, right? Like in terms of building something where maybe you could create some financial freedom where you help other people and you're not just like slaving away at like a 9 to 5 or like a corporate machine like he's talking about. Like he enjoyed programming, but he didn't enjoy it under that context. So what can you do to start living the life you want to?
Myself, and on the fundamental level, trading the essence of my life for a path that I never consciously chose. When I first started working at American Express, I thought maybe it's just a job, maybe it's just a company. Google, Facebook, Amazon, those are the dream companies. That's where you go if you want to like make it. And so I went to Google after a year and a half, And then at first I was like, yeah, this is great. My parents are happy. There's free food in the office. There's free snacks in the office. Everyone is validating me and saying, wow, you got into Google. It was great at first for the first few months, but then you realize that no matter how much you're getting paid, it's still a job in the end. It's still corporate in the end. You're still putting on a mask when you go to work. You're still working for something that you probably don't actually believe in. Because of all these external things, because my parents were happy, because I thought I was supposed to be happy, I fought through it for another 3 years. And the whole time I was just white knuckling my way through work. And the longer I did that, the more I reinforced those thoughts that I don't believe in myself. I don't have agency in my life. This topic around agency, I found that people typically fall into two archetypes. First is what I call sleepwalkers. These people either accept they're trapped or avoid thinking about the fact that they're trapped altogether. They use consumerism and escapism to cope, trading their future for comfort in the present. That's where I was before I started working. And number two, the second archetype is strategists. Strategists take advantage of the rules within the system to become financially independent. They sacrifice short-term pleasures to invest in a future life of freedom. They do this by maximizing their earnings, reducing their expenses, and increasing their status. After I graduated school and became disillusioned with corporate, I fell into this group of category of people when I started pursuing financial independence because I realized most people work 40 years. I'm talking about people who are born in America, go to school, have their tuition paid for by their parents, as privileged as I am, yet they still end up working for 40 years of their life in a job that they never actually like. And it was in 2024 when I started realizing that there's this third archetype of person that we largely don't even realize. Before I talk about them, I want to talk more about the second group of people, the strategists. And while I think this archetype is perfectly fine, it's a completely fine way to live, there's no right way to live, but I realized that for people like me, it's actually a trap. While I was working at Google, I remember having lunch with people who were senior engineers, staff engineers, they had a lot of money, and yet they still felt stuck in their job. They were millionaires, and yet they had a feeling of less agency in their life.
You always want to ask yourself, do I want their life? Because they're basically you as a future projection. Like your senior or your manager or whatever, right? Like, or even your coworker, like, is that what I want? Or do I want to start thinking for myself and create financial freedom in another way? What am I going to do with this one life? Am I going to build someone else's dream or am I going to build my own dream? Might be a helpful way to think.
Life compared to that college dropout who decided that they were going to leave school and go pursue their online business to make magic internet money. And so it made me think, like, why? How is that possible? If someone who is smart enough to be a staff engineer at Google is more scared to take a bet on themselves than the college student who has nothing, then that college student must be an idiot. But after thinking deeper about it, it made sense to me. All the things that kept me tethered to Google, despite what I actually wanted to do, the pay, the prestige, the outsourced sense of internal validation. As you continue to win at the corporate game, the cost of leaving just gets higher and higher because you're getting paid more and more, and you're reinforcing those beliefs that I had been talking about earlier on. You don't believe in yourself. You think that you're stuck in this life. You feel like you have more social status now because you got promoted. And so it's terrifying to leave because you feel like you have so much to lose. And big tech companies like Google, Meta, Amazon, they all provide very, very compelling ladders for you to climb. It's a straightforward path. You just get promoted, get paid a lot more. And it's a very compelling reason to stay. You have the structure. So you have the traditional path. You get into the corporate job. Your parents are happy. Then you
Makes it harder to leave, and then you convince yourself over time that you should just stay there. And you sit in that version of you that is scared to do what you really want.
have this ladder which is just sitting right next to you, and it's like, well, I guess I might as well climb this thing. But if you notice how I described it, it doesn't sound like you actually want to do it. It's something you do because that's just what you're supposed to do. It's your obligation. It's convenient. The ladder's right there. This is what everybody does. This is what your parents say to do. This is what society says to do. Now, I've been ranting for a while, and I have to caveat this. I don't think that everybody needs to quit their job. I'm making this video for the person who has always wanted to take a bet on themselves, who always looks up to people who are like entrepreneur types or creator types, yet are still in the corporate rat race because that's what they were told to do. That's the kind of person I'm making this video for. I do think you can have a very good life in corporate, but for me, it simply wasn't the case. And so if you are that person, let me tell you something that unlocked something in my mind for me. What we don't realize, what I didn't realize growing up, is that when you work a job, when you brush your teeth, when you do these things that we just simply take for granted, it's all actually a choice. It's just that it's so ingrained in you that it becomes unconscious. Even choosing to take a piss when your bladder is about to explode, you still choose consciously when you're going to take that piss. My point is that working your job is a choice, but you might have reinforced in your head so long, the same way that I did, that this is the only path and your only way out is to be a strategist and to do financial independence and all that stuff. But the problem is that we don't realize that there are people who have proven that you can survive outside of the traditional system. The examples I'm going to give are people who are financially successful entrepreneurs, because we glorify entrepreneurs. If you decide that being a monk is the most aligned version of your life, then go do it. Why are you working for a company? I have actually thought about this. I think that if I were to have no other choice but to go back to corporate for whatever reason, I would rather be a monk. That was the conclusion I came to when I went on a 10-day meditation retreat. I thought being a monk is a totally valid way of living. And I think for me, it would be more true to me than going back to corporate, at least at this stage of my life. But obviously, I didn't do that. And I would say that most people wouldn't do that. So let's go over the types of people who are the third archetype. People who are high agency. The ones who bend reality around them instead of the other way around. And so one of these types, Peter Levels, he started founding solo software as a service. He makes millions of dollars a year now after having grown his audience on X. And he makes a lot of AI SaaS apps. He just lives as a digital nomad. Dan Koh, the guy who inspired me to start writing a newsletter. He's a creator who has made a lot of money. and now is making his own SaaS app as well. He does well over $3 million of revenue every year, and for the most part, he runs the business by himself. Maybe a different kind of example, but Chloe Ting, someone who is doing online fitness instruction, and I am sure is making a boatload of money. And Chris Williamson, one of the guys who I listen to his podcast a lot on Modern Wisdom, he was originally a club promoter. He did reality TV on Love Island, and now he's doing this introspective, intellectual podcast with some of the biggest names in the world: Naval Ravikant, Jocko Willing, Alex Hormozy. I'm not saying that these people are living the right way, but they have.
And by the way, if you check out Modern Wisdom, you would not assume that Chris Williamson is or was doing like uh, promoting for clubs or like Love Island before, right? Like he's very like a very like intellectual guy. You know, you can just tell like, and you definitely wouldn't guess like, oh, he was involved in those things before. So this is kind of that's a good example of that. Like he made a path for himself because he didn't want to keep doing those things, and maybe they provided a springboard, right? This guy also isn't saying to just quit your job, right? You know, make sure that you have like a emergency fund or whatever, right? You know, so that you can take that leap, or at least give yourself some time, like while you're working. Because what most people do is they work their 9 to 5, they get home, and that thing that they always say that they're going to work on or do, they never do, right? So they finish their workday, they don't do that thing, and they never make progress. So they stay stuck at their job, right, forever. That's a short way of putting that, but I know you know what I mean because we've all done it before. You know, you get tired, you not watch Netflix, you play video games, you do whatever, right? You drink, and then you don't do what you wanted to. You don't make the body you wanted to. You don't start a business. You don't start, you know, making friends with new people, better community, maybe getting a great relationship going, things like that. You know, there's so much more that you can do if you don't get stuck in this typical scenario that people do.
Have shown that it is possible to take agency over your life, to get off of the default path, to survive outside of the default path. But for some reason, this whole time, I never believed that it was really possible. I didn't think that I could be a high agency person. I couldn't even bring myself to just accept that I didn't want to work my job. I kept telling myself I did want it. One of the mental models that I really liked from Alex Hormozy was the analogy of winning the lottery. And the story he gave was that there was one day where he bought the lottery ticket. And as the lottery drawing got nearer and nearer, he started to get worried. Not worried that he would lose, worried that he would win, because it would mean that his entire journey had been robbed from him. His journey to making it on his own, his journey to going from whatever, zero to, let's say, millionaire, it would have this stain on it forever. And I resonate a lot with this, because how many goals have you achieved in your life that you thought would make you happy? For me, it was Google. It was getting diamonds in League of Legends, or cutting edge in World of Warcraft, hitting a $500,000 net worth. Achieving that stuff was good for a little bit, but really everything was all about the journey in the end. And so if the journey is all there is, why are you depriving yourself of the journey? Why deprive yourself of living the life that you actually want? I do think that if I were to work at Google, I could probably retire in, let's say, 15 years. Very, very, very comfortably. But it would be on a journey that I despised. Why would I ever trade 15 years of my life for money? I think anybody who is older would wish that they could trade all the money that they have.
Remember, think about my friend's dad who passed away as soon as he retired. What would you do in that scenario? Would you do the same thing? Or would you treat your life differently?
In order to have a chance to go back and live a life that's more true to themselves. And in fact, the number one regret of dying people is I wish I lived a life that was true to myself. And so let me walk you through my actual decision-making process based on everything that we talked about so far to actually make that choice. And I would say that the very first step is to become aware that it is possible through those people that I mentioned, through so many people on the internet who have done it. And then accepting that reality is right in front of your eyes. If you want an early example of someone who's not already on step 10 of their journey, I'm on step 1. Just over 70 days ago, I started posting online. I'm now a creator, and I have over 100,000 audience across all my platforms. I'm not just talking the talk here, I'm walking the walk. I don't know if I'm going to fully succeed or not, but I have seen that when you actually put your mind to something, when you actually start trying something, when you actually accept that you have the choice to bend reality and not the other way around, you start doing it. So now the next step, find a life's vision.
Remember that you have a choice, and you're basically letting the world tell you what to do.
I know that sounds very grand, and you might not even know where to start. So there's actually 2 ways to do this. And the first approach is the one that I took, which is never thinking about it until it's too late, until the pain was just so bad that I literally didn't care that I was alive. You can get to that point, and at that point, you will be forced to change. You will be forced to figure out what it is that you don't want in life. And ironically, that's one of the best ways to find out what you do want in life. And so for me, that took the form of I do not want to be working a corporate job. I've tried it. I've tried to force it into my life so much. And what I really want is a life of agency, a life of freedom, whatever freedom means to me. I know this is philosophical, but to unpack the term for me, that means having the finances to live without ever having to look at a price tag, never have to worry about having to pay for medical expenses for myself or for anybody that I love. It means being able to fly first class, go anywhere in the world, work from anywhere. And there's another version of it, which is just being a monk and giving up all craving and desire. Those are the 2 life visions that I envisioned for myself. And so that's the first approach. You let things get painful. And I think in the end, a lot of times people who make these big decisions in life take that approach. Maybe it's just an unteachable lesson. I don't know. But the second approach that I would recommend and that I wish I knew before I got to that point is to ask a few questions. One that I would ask my past self would be, do you wake up with a sense of purpose? Because I realize now that I do. In the past, I had no feeling whatsoever like that. The only purpose I had was to avoid work and try to play video games as much as I could. And then the second question I would ask is,
And think about that. You're avoiding work, you're escaping the life that you built for yourself because you don't like it. That's so important to realize. I mean, you can shift things. You don't have to be a victim like, oh, but I was born this way and this happened. And there's always somebody who can basically prove you wrong in that situation. You just look for, humans are designed to seek confirmation bias. It basically means they're looking for the things that they currently believe to be true. So it affirms the current situation. And if that belief is shaken up or proven wrong, then they question their current situation or identity, right? Or things up until then. So this is what I mean. Like, start being more intentional with your life outside of work. What are you doing to start building the life that you really want? Because you don't want to feel like you need to escape it, like this guy was describing. What kind of life is that?
if money wasn't a factor, would you still be doing what you're doing today? The third question, which is highly personal to me, what I would want to ask my past self more than anything is, are you actually pursuing a life that you want? Or are you just living in hopes of less bad? If you've watched this far, I'm guessing that you probably are considering leaving your job. You probably are wondering if your purpose is something greater than whatever it is you're doing right now. So I can tell you what happened for me as someone who started working for Google, which was a dream company since I was young, and I walked away from that company, and I was making over $300,000 a year. And so this is what my life has looked like for the past 70-something days. I have slept a lot less. I have seen less of my friends. I haven't seen much of my family. I work probably 12 hours a day. I'm in Japan now by myself in this Airbnb. I have failed countless times. I've made videos that have taken me 10 hours only to get a few thousand views. When I started out, I posted over 300 times on X, and I didn't make any progress really. I make much, much less money now than I do at Google, but I have also achieved things that I never thought possible. Building an audience of over 100,000, working on something that I actually enjoy working on, that I get in the zone, that I actually feel like I wake up and I want to work on these things. And just this feeling of being alive, feeling all these different emotions that I've had from going to a meetup with my followers in Tokyo on the other side of the world, over 15 people there, feeling like life has a new color to it now. And I believe in the long-term vision. And I've started believing in myself. I started believing that reality does bend to your will, not the other way around. The analogy that I would give is that when I was working a job, it felt like I was trying to catch water from a pitcher that had nothing in it. But working for myself and doing this creative work, doing all the business work, just growing as a person and going to Japan and doing all this stuff by myself, it feels like I'm trying to catch the overflow out of that pitcher. And so the two biggest mindset shifts for me that led me to quit, and now I retroactively think are so important, are number one, what is the price that you put on a day of your life? You have to realize that you are making that payment every single time that you go to a job that
Stop trading your time for money.
you don't like. And the second thing is, for the people who are quote unquote high achievers, if you can make six figures doing something that you hate, then imagine how much money you can make in the future doing something that you love. And I don't mean love in that traditional sense of like passion and whatever. I mean something in the sense that this is something that you feel that you just have to do no matter what. And I will never recommend that you just quit your job without anything in the bank. Something that I am very glad that I did was actually finding that job at Google. It allowed me to build up the financial runway to be able to do what I'm doing now. Don't outsource your thoughts. Don't outsource your actions. Don't wait for everything to fall apart like what happened to me. Maybe this is just all unteachable lessons, but at the very least, I think that I would have liked to have this video when I was going through what I was going through just a year ago. So if you enjoyed this video and you like these kinds of thoughts from
Yeah, go like his channel, Jim Tang. And if you can, like, comment, subscribe over here as well. I'm building to 10,000 subscribers at the moment. But thank you guys for watching. I think he makes a really awesome point here. Like, do what you want with your life and don't allow the world to convince you into being like a brainwashed zombie to do what you're supposed to be doing or what's best for you, right? Like, have you ever thought about what's best for you and what you really want in your life? If it's what you're currently doing, amazing, amazing. I love that for you. That's great. Obviously, you might have made it to the end of this video and you're thinking, well, no, it's not amazing. I want different things for myself. So this is your chance to really wake up and start reassessing how you can design your life in multiple different ways. So, I mean, a lot of my videos are on this channel about this. So, go watch another one if you like, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.